Force has penetrated the shield and landed on Endor.
This is where the fun begins.
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away.
This is Rebel Force Radio.
Your source for the Force.
Star Wars news and commentary.
With Jason Swank and Jimmy Mack.
I've seen Star Wars 500 times. Star Wars #1!
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe. I suggest we use it.
Now it's time for Rebel Force Radio.
We would be honored if you would join us.
All right, want to get right to it. Don't want to waste any time. Got a big show for you this week. Lots to do, lots to cover, including the return, the long-awaited return of our own Jedi Yogi, John Marcoux. That's right, John Marcoux is going to be here, and we will be talking about the mythological blueprint for Mandalorian Season 3. And I am told he has really brought the goods. He always does. He always does. We've done a number of these, and it's always great fun. And I know, based on the feedback that you all send us, that you enjoy it as well. I always get a couple of texts even, people, close friends of the show that'll text me and say, oh, listen to last week's episode, or this week's episode. And, whoa, mind-blowing. It was great. So we want to get to that. Plus some news we want to touch on. We got some things, some headlines we want to get to, including the Acolyte budget is being covered by Forbes. There's some interesting things to glean in there, including a very, very prime example of burying the lead. Totally burying the lead there over at Forbes. Plus Tem Morrison. We talked about that last week, but we have the clip of Tem talking about what he would like to see the future of the character of Boba Fett, and a surprise Mandalorian special on its way this fall. Won't give it away. Won't give it away completely. You have to listen to the rest of the program as it unfolds. And thank you so much for being here. We love talking Star Wars with you each and every week. Every week is like Star Wars celebration here at Rebel Force Radio. So you are in the right place. Introductions in order if you're new to the show. My name is Jason, and with me, as always, my good friend and yours from Chicago, Jimmy Mack.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Star Wars fans. Countdown to AHSOKA, now we could definitely say, is 1 month away. We're within a month, actually, even. So everything is pumping me up for AHSOKA, except there's obviously not going to be any hype machine surrounding the release of the film. You're not going to be seeing Rosario Dawson doing the talk show circuit. You're not going to be seeing Dave Filoni out there doing interviews. Nothing, because of all the strikes that are going on, the writer's strike and the actor's strike. So we'll try to keep you fulfilled with the hype machine here as well as we can provide it. And it's better coming from us anyway, because it's all fan generated. It's not some sort of corporate PR machine telling you how you should be, anticipating this show. We're not going to put any spins on it. We'll just come at it as Star Wars fans do. And that's what we do here. We're Star Wars fans, and we talk about Star Wars. So yeah, lots to talk about this week.
Can I start off with just a little bit of a gripe?
Sure.
I got a gripe.
Oh, boy.
We talk a little bit about collecting here once in a while, and I am a collector. Jimmy Mack is a collector. I think I would say that probably most Star Wars fans are collectors of some sort. And I love the action figures, love the toys. New toys come out. I got to pre-order them. And oftentimes I'll pre-order these things sometimes, whenever the pre-order comes out, sometimes it's months in advance. And what's really frustrating is sometimes you'll pre-order something and it's an exclusive, I don't know, say from Target. And you start seeing it at the Targets before you get yours in the mail, even though you have already paid for it and told Target you want it. So this happened to me with the Black Series Gamorrean Guard. It was on the retro card for Return of the Jedi, part of the 40th anniversary Return of the Jedi. So I'm at Target, and I keep seeing this thing, and I'm like, no, I'm not going to buy it. I ordered it. It's going to be showing up any day now. So it arrived. It arrived today. So I passed up on this in the store, mind you. So I, anxious, opened it up.
What you got in
And
there?
this
Oh
is
my
what I
God.
got.
They put the carded action figure in a very small box, an undersized box, and just sort of shoved it in there with no regards to the packaging whatsoever. And it is one of the more brutal examples of careless packaging of a collectible. And they slapped a big giant UPC code sticker on
How do you like that?
too.
Isn't that a beauty? Look at this.
Yeah, you really cannot expect to get collectible level packaging when you order
No.
from these big box maniacs. But yet Hasbro is a company likes to run exclusives with these big box store maniacs who have no regard for collectibles at all. When are they just going to direct market this stuff straight to the collectors and cut out this charade we're playing with Target and Amazon and Walmart? I mean, let's just put an end to it. Direct to the consumer, Hasbro. Please stop playing games with us. Now, a lot of announcements were made at San Diego Comic-Con last weekend regarding the Star Wars line. The things that jumped out to me the most was obviously the HasLab offer this time around is for the Ghost from Star Wars Rebels, full-size ship, sized for vintage 3 3/4-inch action figures. And it's going for $5 hundo. I couldn't even say it. It was so much. I choked on the number. And I choked on the order, too. I am passing this one up.
You are passing it up. Okay.
I have 2 large-size Hasbro ships in the collection already with the Jabba's Skiff and the Mandalorian Razor Crest. And that's all I need for now. It would really have to be something from the original trilogy, maybe the prequels, that would really call it me to make me want to throw down $500 for a toy replica of a starship seen in the Rebels animated show. But boy, it looks great. I don't knock anybody for making the order. It's a really solid piece. And
the action figures that come with it are fantastic. But I do want to let everyone know, if you didn't hear this, the figures, which include the whole Ghost crew, they are exclusive to the HasLab, but only the card back. So they will be released as individual figures in the vintage line, the 3 3/4-inch vintage line. But the versions, the card backs that come with the HasLab are pictures of the characters as they appear in that mural at the end of the Rebels series. And that's going to figure into the AHSOKA series as well. But there will be proper carded versions of them that will show up at retail and at your favorite e-tailer. So I was relieved, Jim. I was like, oh, is this the only way I can get these figures? So I was this close to ordering, and then my buddy Chase Norton, the spawn of Sheldon Norton, he texted me and said that
the spawn of Sheldon.
Well, you know, they're Canadian. They don't breed. They spawn up there. And so anyway, he let me know that this was not an exclusive in its entirety. So I was very happy to hear that, and I know you as a somewhat completist on the 3 3/4-inch line, especially with new characters that haven't been done before in this realistic style. I don't think we've had any of the Rebels crew in the 3 3/4-inch done in the realistic style.
No, not in realistic style. No, definitely not. I mean, we haven't even seen them in realistic style yet until the AHSOKA.
Well, right.
But outside of Garazeb Ezerelius, we saw him in The Mandalorian Season 3, but just briefly. And you have to assume he's going to show up in AHSOKA. The other news coming out of San Diego Comic-Con regarding vintage action figures was the surprise announcement of a Life Day Chewbacca action figure from the Star Wars.
This was a shocker.
A Life Day Chewbacca. He comes in the red robe. He has the glowing orb, and he is spectacular. So the first
You're all about
official,
this. I wasn't
yeah,
sure,
of course
I wasn't
I am.
sure how you were going to feel about this.
Oh, are you kidding me? It's the holiday special. There's been action figures teased for the holiday special for years and years, even going back to the old vintage days of 1978, 79. But here we're getting the Chewbacca. It's a great looking figure. It comes on a vintage card back. It's 3 3/4 inch range. Comes with, like I said, the robe. Comes with the. I made a very crude Life Day Chewie out of Power of the Force figures. So my Life Day Chewie is ripped, and he's ready to go lift it.
I don't know, dude. Look at these little. He looks like he's wearing a Snuggie. This looks terrible.
That's what it looks like on the
soft
holiday special.
Really?
That's pretty legit. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
The robes they're wearing are greatly oversized. Look at the photo.
Okay.
You can see right there.
Looks like a big
So
red
that's
Snuggie.
hilarious.
It is great.
That's
But you got to ask yourself, why and how is this happening when we know how George felt about, and this would have never happened if George was still in charge. So is there a part of you that wonders if this is somewhat sacrilegious to George in a way?
No.
Shouldn't this holiday special just be obscure and live in documentaries, like we've been covering the holiday special documentary that's coming out? Should it be in the mainstream to the extent that it appears like it's headed with action figures?
Yeah, I say yes, because there's been so many spin-offs of the holiday special. There was a Wookiee Life Day book that came out back in the day. And at Galaxy's Edge, they've been incorporating a lot of Life Day themes and merch. And of course, George Lucas did own Lucasfilm when Hasbro released the holiday special Boba Fett action figure.
Oh, that's a good point.
2000s.
That's a good point. But that was the only, if I recall, that was the only part of the holiday special that George really had any use for. I think he was quite fond of that. And of course, that is the great experiment that would lead to droids and Ewoks and
yes.
Yeah.
Same company, the Nelvana Animation Company. And George included the animated feature on the Blu-ray release from 2011, 2012, whenever that came out. But Life Day is something that Disney has been cherry-picking from. It's been represented in the Marvel comics for sure. And I think it just sort of gets lumped in there nowadays with the old expanded universe, where it presents the opportunity to cherry pick certain things from Star Wars storytelling without fully adapting those old stories that might be subpar or outside canon now, and just take elements of that and sprinkle it throughout Star Wars. So, plus it's the only time Chewie ever wears anything, which is notable. I mean, outside of the bandolier, he doesn't really wear much. So.
I want to give a quick plug. If you're interested in more news coming out of San Diego Comic-Con with respect to collecting, galacticfigures.com, run by our pal Chris B. Fantastic website. We were talking last week, Jim, about how you archive your action figures with your photo galleries on your phone. Chris has taken that to a whole other level through this website. It's great. It can even help you locate and identify some of your accessories. Like, I have this blaster. Who might it belong to? It's an incredible database, incredible repository, covers all the news, and does a real fine podcast as well. So it's just the facts, man. You're driving and you want 25 minutes of just him telling you what came out at San Diego Comic-Con, where you can get it, when it's coming out. That's what you where you want to go. So galacticfigures.com, great guy and a great website. He never asks us to plug. That's why I love to plug it, because he never asks us. And I use it a lot, and I'm very fond of it and him, and it's a great resource. One more plug. I got to throw this in. My boy has started a YouTube channel, so if you're at all, or it's really if your kids,
awesome.
If your kids are into Roblox or Bed Wars, He's got a YouTube channel. It's called Spider Plays, and it doesn't have enough Google juice. It's hard to find. So you can look at Spider Plays 3678. That's his user. And he's really putting his heart and soul into this. And I told him I would plug it on the podcast. I'm not asking RFR listeners and subscribers to. I'm just asking RFR listeners, if you got kids that like playing Roblox Bed Wars, you might like Parker's videos. So check it out. I've done what I promised, and I'm proud of him. It's his summer activity, and he's having a ton of fun with it. And, you know, I mean, it's amazing to watch a 10-year-old kid edit video. It's mind-blowing, but yeah.
All right. Well, that opens the door to the next segment where we promote our kids, and
we're proud dads, you know, always have been.
You know, so I definitely have some plugs coming up in this next segment, and poor Daniel Logan didn't know what hit him after he visited my family last weekend. Now, Daniel Logan came to the Chicago area. He flew into O'Hare because he was going to drive to Peoria, Illinois, to attend a Comic-Con, a great show out there presented by Quad City Con, the Peoria Comic and Toy Show, which was just a great time in downtown Peoria. We went and attended with Daniel Logan. And I heard he was coming into town. He was flying into O'Hare. And that's a long, boring drive from O'Hare to Peoria. It could take 2.5 hours. And I thought, you know, Daniel Logan, Boba Fett from Attack of the Clones, he can't be making that trip through
he deserves
Illinois
better
by himself. He needs a wingman. So I was Daniel's wingman, and naturally, if he's going to have a wingman, I needed a wingman. So Tyler Page came along for the trip, and we picked up Daniel at O'Hare Airport. And the first place we took him was to visit my son Dylan at Blurred's Underground, the comic shop you heard me talking about a few times here on Rebel Force Radio. They're great guys. Blurred's Underground in downtown LaGrange. These guys, they're so passionate. They're not, big corporate guys. They're just regular guys who run a comic shop. So I feel really good about getting the word out about Blurred's Underground here on RFR.
And they're not like comic book guys, right? Like they don't give you a hard time or go, "Oh, you're into that? Oh, please. I can't believe you're buying that comic." You know the type. It's hard sometimes going into those comic shops. Like, just let me buy my Star Wars comics in peace. I don't need your commentary.
I'll say this. Sometimes those guys, they could be a little salty. They could be a little impatient with you. You don't get that at Blurred's. I mean, these guys, it's just real. What a great vibe. And I'm not just saying that because my son Dylan McInerney works there. I'm saying that because I really believe it. But it is true. Dylan does work there. And so I was telling Daniel about the shop and everything, and he said, yeah, let's go see Dylan before we hit dinner and then hit the road to Peoria. So I have a little slideshow here, and I'll walk you through the entire weekend. Jason, fire up the slideshow here for everyone to see. But here's Daniel Logan upon entering Blurred's Underground in LaGrange, and he's checking out the vast collection of comics and collectibles. He jumped behind the counter immediately to assist Dylan with a few sales there at the register, and that was a lot of fun. So there's my son Dylan with the classic Atari T-shirt on there, saying it loud, saying it proud. He's ringing up a customer, and little does the customer know Daniel Logan's back there. Then from the comic shop, we came to my house where Daniel and Tyler checked out my collection in my basement there. They're looking at some autographs and other cool Star Wars collectibles that I keep down there. There's me and Daniel hanging out amongst my collection, and my Elton John pinball machine.
Dude, when did you get that?
Oh, yeah, it's all happening. It's all happening,
man.
So.
This is so impressive. What's more impressive, Boba Fett in your basement or 3,000 action figures all lined up against the wall?
That's exactly right. 6 shelves, 14 feet across of nothing but 3 3/4-inch action figures. Daniel's checking out some posters we found of him, promotional posters that were given away at Walden Books back in 2002. More on that later.
Wow.
There he is. We've arrived at the Comic-Con now after 2.5 hours of the car. Lots of laughs and jokes. Daniel's line for signing was constant, nonstop. There you see a very healthy line as people were coming to see him all day. And
now, did you
see
sit at
that
the
banner
table with him, Jim, or were you just kind of working the floor?
That's Pete the agent.
Okay.
He was a good guy. Yeah, no, I let him work, you know.
Yeah.
I let Daniel work. There's Mark Dodson, the voice of Salacious Crumb. Our pal Salacial Mark was up there on stage at the Quad City Con, and he told some great stories, some really cool industry stories about working in radio, doing voiceover work, and it was very entertaining. I learned a lot from him, and he's got a great set of pipes, and we had a lot of fun hanging out with him all weekend. Here we are out for dinner. We went to Jim's Steakhouse in Peoria. There's myself, Mark, Daniel, Tyler, Pete the agent, and we had a great dinner. We're just filled with so many laughs, and the staff there was outstanding. The meat was great. So was the wine. And we just had a stellar evening. There we are, myself, Mark, Tyler, Daniel, and back to the con the next day. There's me, Daniel, and Pete, and that Daniel Logan banner is something Daniel didn't take back with him. It ended up in my collection. So now
wow. Okay.
There's some Chewbacca Adidas high tops, which I was very impressed with, and so is Daniel, as you can see in that photo. He's just having a great time, you know. Lots of positive vibes at this convention. Not a very large convention at all, but the people who were there were great. Daniel did an awesome panel where he talked about growing up as a kid in the business and hitting conventions and meeting fans and just really just soaking it all in, you know. He's a guy who's really spent a majority of his life on the convention circuit, and I'll tell you,
he's grown up in front of the eyes of fans for a couple of decades. It's really amazing.
Right. So never a dull moment when Daniel Logan is at the convention. He does have energy to spare. I don't know where he gets it from. And then here is at the end of the day, right before we left, we were approached by this guy, fully bedazzled stormtrooper, full armor.
But there was something wrong with my screen for a second. No, that's on him. That's
yeah, it's all like sequined out and stuff. So that was a trip. So that was a great trip. And then we drove back home. And of course, we had to get Daniel the deep dish Chicago pizza before he jumped on that plane and split. But we had a ball on that trip. It was just what the doctor ordered. So I mentioned to you, we stopped into Blurred's Underground, and you know, it's not easy for small business owners. They kind of get lost at sea sometimes, and they struggle. And so Daniel Logan recognizes this, and he shot a promo video, you know, out of the goodness of his heart for the guys at Blurred so they could post up on social media. So it features myself and Dylan Mack. And I thought we could give that a little spin here on old RFR. All right, we're in the comic
no one
shop.
ever puts these back in the right spot.
Excuse me. Hi.
Yeah, one second. Wait a minute. Are you Jimmy Mack from Rebel Force Radio and Daniel Logan? Is that you too?
In the flesh.
What brings you guys here to Blurred's Underground?
Well, Jimmy Mack here has told me that this is the dopest place in the galaxy to buy your comics, so... Is that true?
Well, Jimmy Mack is a very smart man, because as you can see, we are stocked full of comics and collectibles. And may I point your attention to this shelf? I feel like it may pique your interest a little bit.
I'll take all of these.
All of them?
Yeah, all of them.
All right, right away, Mr. Daniel Logan.
Each one of them in this collection.
He's taking stats.
All right, your total will be $1,138.
Perfect. Jimmy Mack, take care of my man.
There he goes.
Max seems to be a little shy there in the wallet department. Daniel's out the door already. before Matt can even, find that $1,138.
All right, and that's posted up to our Facebook page if you want to check that out. It might be out there on some other socials. It's definitely part of the full show video for our Patreon All Access supporters. But thank you, Daniel Logan.
Very cool
So you
stuff.
promote your son's YouTube channels. I'll promote my son's comic book shop.
Deal.
And so poor Daniel, he didn't know what hit him. But no, he just had a blast. He dove right in, really loved it, and got along great with Dylan. He and Tyler were like two peas in a pod. Brothers from another mother. Now, I mentioned that we had a stash. And this comes from the old days. 20 years ago, Billy Mack used to work at a bookstore. And they would send promotional
B. Dalton,
material.
right? Was it the old B. Daltons?
It was one of those things.
Yeah.
Walden Books,
Or Walden's,
no longer
yeah.
in business.
Right. The old
So
days.
Billy was there, and there was a lot of Star Wars promotional merchandise being sent to these stores when films were coming out to accompany book releases and what have you. And Billy was there when Episode 2 was released. He was the manager of the store. And so whatever didn't go to the customers would get thrown away, promotional materials, standees, posters, what have you. And so Billy, he knew, well, I can't throw this stuff away. It has to go into the collection. So we found a bunch of posters to promote the Scholastic release of the young adult Boba Fett novels. There was a series of novels, Boba Fett, released in 2002 that told Attack of the Clones era stories about Boba. So essentially, what did Boba do after the Battle of Geonosis? Well, these books told the story, and here's the poster.
Born to be a bounty hunter. Very cool.
There's young Daniel there with Jango Fett, and he's in a fighting pose.
Yeah, right.
So Daniel signed this one.
Oh, he just signed it.
Yes.
Wow.
He
It
just
says
signed
Daniel Logan, Boba Fett.
Yeah. So I've had these posters in my attic for 20 years. Look on the other side. This is for Star Wars Jedi Quest, and it shows an interesting morphing of Anakin Skywalker from Jake Lloyd into Hayden Christensen.
I remember that piece of artwork showing up here and there, especially at the bookstores. Yeah.
Look at the one in the middle. It's
amazing.
Hayden Jake. Hayden Jake.
It's Jaden.
Jake. So it's a two-sided poster, and we found about, 30 of them or maybe 40 of them. So very limited,
Yeah, right. Well, yeah, these were exclusive.
And they're in mint condition. And so Daniel signed some. This one I'm going to give away to a lucky RFR listener.
To an RFR listener.
Yeah, United States only. Unfortunately, this can't be an international contest. It's going to be U.S. only. Yes.
Excellent.
Yes.
Which one? They got to enter?
We're going to use Facebook for this contest.
Okay.
Facebook.
Right.
That's kind of complicated, but you have to follow Daniel Logan's Bounty Boxes group.
Okay.
And you have to follow Rebel Force Radio
Simple
on
enough.
Facebook.
So
Just
far,
our
I'm in the
pages.
lead.
You don't have to worry about the groups or anything like that. Now, Bounty Boxes is a group, I believe. But I don't think there's any cost to enter it or anything. And it's a great group, too, because Daniel is on there auctioning off random items from this massive Star Wars collection he's amassed over. I mean, he's like crazy about collecting Star Wars stuff. And man, he knows his stuff. When he was in my basement, he started checking out my collection. He pulls down the vinyl Cape Jawa. And he knew right away that sucker was as phony as they come. Now, the figure itself is legit, but the vinyl cape is a fake-a-rooney. It's a repro. Yeah, I'm one of those. What are you going to do about it? But just because I wanted a vinyl Cape Jawa, what do you want from me? So he knew it was fake, though. I was impressed with that. He knew right away. So he has these auctions on bounty boxes, and he sells like mystery boxes of Star Wars memorabilia. And oftentimes he scribbles a little note on there for you or something. And so this is happening on Facebook at Bounty Boxes. Just do a search.
It is a group, so you have to join it. You have to answer, just like the official Rebel Force Radio group, you have to answer a couple of questions, and then you get approved for admission into the group. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So then you have to do that. Then go to the Rebel Force Radio Facebook page, and we'll have it pinned up to the top. By the time this show is in your ears, you'll see it there. And it will be a picture of this poster. I'll just put this poster there right on top of the Rebel Force Radio Facebook page, and you have to comment right beneath it, I want to open bounty boxes with Daniel Logan while listening to RFR. It's that simple. So there's a few hoops you have to jump through to become qualified. You have to join Bounty Box's Facebook group. You have to follow and like RFR on Facebook. And then you have to look for the post featuring the picture of Jango Fett and young Boba. It'll be a photo of the actual poster itself, Born to be a Bounty Hunter, Star Wars Boba Fett, Scholastic, signed by Daniel Logan. Very rare. Hard to find promotional poster from 22 years ago. So, and it's been in my attic the whole time. And so you'll see the post, and then you have to write that verbatim. I want to open bounty boxes with Daniel Logan while listening to RFR. Boom, you're entered. And we'll pick the winner at random next week on the show. But believe me, any entry that goes into our random drawing will be vetted out to make sure you do follow RFR on Facebook and you are a member of the Bounty Boxes group.
Yeah.
Only listeners in the U.S. are eligible to win. No purchase necessary, void where prohibited. We'll be picking the winner at random next week on the show, and it's an awesome giveaway. Now, if you don't win, it's a good idea that you're following the Bounty Boxes group, because Daniel will be, from time to time, offering these for purchase, whether it be via auction or a wheel spin, however they want to do it there. That's up to them.
Yeah.
But so this isn't your only chance to get one of these great autographed posters, but it's going to be your only chance to get it on RFR.
Love it.
Daniel will be offering them on Bounty Boxes, I believe. I mean, that's the whole plan. I didn't let him walk out of my house with all those posters.
You know,
if he was just going to, wallpaper the room or something.
If Billy Mack hears this episode, he's going to be like, Jim, where's mine? Did you get me one? Did you have Daniel Logan sign one for me? Look at his face. You didn't. You forgot. You didn't get it. Please tell me you got one for Billy Mack. You wouldn't even have the posters if it wasn't for Billy Mack.
No. All the autographs were for Dilly Dog. Not for Dylan.
Oh, no.
My son Dylan. I called Dylan Dilly Dog, and Logan was looking at my phone, and Dylan called me, and it popped up. It said Dilly Dog. And so that stuck for the rest of the weekend.
That was it.
Daniel was, yeah. So Daniel, like, he was, like, demanding to sign things, specifically to Dilly Dog. So he was like on autopilot for a while, and all the posters that were there to spare got personalized to Dylan.
Poor Billy.
But it was such a great, I mean, what a great guy. What a great guy. So,
yeah, that's awesome.
And I watched the way Daniel Logan interacts with the fans. It's truly, I mean, we talk Ashley Eckstein, right?
Yeah.
How she goes that extra mile. Well,
right.
Daniel is exactly the same.
Yeah.
Exactly the same. But just like wildly more energetic than any person I've ever spent a weekend with. So, yeah, I don't know where he gets it from, but it's nonstop go with Daniel, and just a great guy. And he's living a good life now. He's a family man now. He lives a healthy life. I like to see it. I'm proud of him. I've known him 20 years, I think.
Yeah.
And
go way back.
It's been awesome to just watch that guy grow into such the amazing fan ambassador that he is for Star Wars. So,
yeah. Here.
Good times.
All right.
Jump on that poster giveaway, dang it. And we'll do something for Patreon, too. So you guys will be entered to win as well.
Hey, speaking of Patreon, don't forget to check us out over on Patreon. It's very easy to get there. You just go to rebelforceradio.com and click on the Patreon banner in the old right rail. And there you'll be taken to the Patreon page. You can also go to patreon.com/rebelforceradio, but you'll get served up a whole selection of membership options. Each membership at the various levels comes with a variety of privileges therein. Everything from $1 up to $2, $5, $10, $11.38, which gets you RFR All Access. And everyone listening, or everyone that is on RFR All Access, has the option to watch the Rebel Force Radio podcast, the full show video. Those get posted. The links to those get posted over on Patreon. And then if you pay up to the $50 a month, you get to host a podcast with Jimmy Mack. So, Mac, what's the latest in the world of Patreon and the exclusive content?
Well, this week has been a good week right out of the gate. We released RFR Q&A with Scott St. Louis and myself talking about the morality tale that definitely is found in most Star Wars stories. The tale of good versus evil, dark versus light, hate versus love. And it was a very interesting conversation that provided a few revelations to both me and Scott as we started to break it all down. Of course, the Babu Freaks are there. The Freaks are back. We returned with reviews of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. We talk about The Force Awakens in concert, the future for Star Wars streaming series, Return of the Jedi, retro vintage action figures. We talk about old radio prank calls and so much more on Babu Freaks. The Freaks are the Chicago crew. Full show video of last week's show is up there. Inside AHSOKA, the Acolyte, and Lando. Our All Access members are watching the entire episode, just like they're watching this entire episode. A highlight from that episode last week was us breaking down what's really going on with the Lando series. And we discuss and provide some insider insight into what really might be holding the whole thing up. And we took that video highlight and made that available for everyone to see on YouTube this week, along with our full review of the AHSOKA trailer and so much more. So check us out on Patreon, support our show, pop into YouTube, and you'll see highlights from the weekly show, including the fake Mace Windu mystery, the Star Wars Outlaws trailer review, and so much more. So that way you can watch segments of the show and decide for yourself if maybe RFR All Access on Patreon is something you'd like to have at your fingertips so you can see full show video, not just a few minutes here and there from each week. So we always make highlights available on YouTube for everyone, but full show video is only available for RFR All Access on Patreon. So consider supporting us on Patreon today, because that's the best way to keep your favorite podcast alive and well for years to come.
All right, let's check in with some listener feedback.
You must contact me.
Play back the entire message.
What message?
Message after the message.
The Emperor commands you to make contact with him. It's a trick. Send no reply.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Jimmy. It's Rob from Toronto. I hope you're both enjoying the summer and getting some good time with your families. I'm just thinking about the AHSOKA series. It's not really a theory, but maybe more wishful thinking. If the first episode is based more on an establishing flashback, maybe a series of them, I think it'd be great given the voice, given the fact that she's a little tinier than Rosario, for Ashley to play young AHSOKA with Rex. Like I say, maybe a bit of a pipe dream in that, but it's fun. Something fun to think about. So thank you guys for everything you're doing. Enjoy the rest of the summer, and I'm looking forward to the series. Take care. Hopefully Blake hasn't stolen that theory first, though. So we'll see. Take care, guys.
Oh, yeah, we'll get to talk to Blake when we start up with the after shows. I know everybody's looking forward to AHSOKA starting in late August. I particularly am looking forward to that, as well as the after shows. That's a part of, for us, it's part of the whole experience. It's like, yeah, the show's great. Let's watch the show, and then let's go do a show with our live audience and get the calls going in and all the theories and talk to everybody, including our young pal Blake. So the idea of a Ashley Eckstein cameo of some sorts, could she play a young AHSOKA? Look, I think that there was a possibility at one point that Ashley could have played a live action AHSOKA, but that ship has sailed. In my opinion, I don't think that's obviously not. That's not in the cards. I think there's too many differences in physicality to where the feasibility of Ashley playing a young version of AHSOKA. But that doesn't mean that Ashley couldn't have some sort of role. There couldn't be an Easter egg, a cameo, something. I would love to see that. But I do know that the spirit of Ashley's AHSOKA, I feel confident that it lives on in Rosario's version. The two of them, from what we understand, have become very friendly. Ashley was there on the set of AHSOKA. So I think the spirit of AHSOKA, as birthed by Ashley Eckstein, is nurtured by Ashley Eckstein, I think is flowing through this show through Rosario. But I think that's about as much as we're going to get. I don't think we're going to get much visual confirmation, though a cameo's not out of the realm of possibility, but not to the extent that our buddy is suggesting here, Rob from Toronto.
How do you feel about her applying a vocal cameo for maybe a young actress playing a teenaged AHSOKA, like the one we're so familiar with from the Clone Wars?
I don't dislike that idea at all. I think that would be kind of, to have that voice show up in the series. Yeah, I think that would hit me in all the right feels. We'll put it that way. I like that idea.
For me, that's Ashley AHSOKA in her prime. Is the Ashley version of the character from the Clone Wars, not Rebels.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, AHSOKA is still cool in Rebels, but there's the snips is missing.
Yeah.
There's no snips. There's the quips from AHSOKA just flowed out of the teenage version. Ashley's voice seemed very much at home with the teenaged version of AHSOKA.
Right.
Older AHSOKA felt like a very and vastly different character to me. The AHSOKA we see in Rebels is too stoic. Too stoic. I liked the spunk that the Ashley Eckstein voiced young AHSOKA from Clone Wars had. She had the spunk, she had the tood, and she had, like Daniel Logan, energy to spare. I really got that out of the character. The character in Rebels was falling more into that typical Jedi stereotype. Silent, stoic, all-knowing, unflappable, always above it all, Young AHSOKA from Clone Wars feels more like a real person to me.
Yeah.
Now,
reserved. Rosario's version of AHSOKA, at least what we've seen so far, outside of the series, is much more reserved and, as you say, perhaps more proper, stoic. Yeah.
Right. So that's largely how I've come to terms with taking Ashley away from the role and granting the live action AHSOKA to Rosario. Because I noted this when I was watching Rebels. I felt like it's great to have AHSOKA there. And I love seeing an adult Ahsoka. But it's just not the same character as she was from the Clone Wars. And that's where I think Ashley shines the greatest. And that's where I think Ahsoka shines the greatest until I get this dose of Ahsoka, adult Ahsoka in the live action show. But I just hope that she doesn't fall into that Jedi culture of the Jedi where they're all just so
kind of blasé about things, and a little
detached.
like they got sticks up there. You know what?
Yes.
It's like, come on, let the Leku down. Let it flap in the breeze.
Yes, it's the characteristic of the Jedi as presented in the prequel era has such a stick up their ass. I mean, even Mace Windu, I was so disappointed because I thought Sam Jackson in Star Wars as a Jedi, at some point he's going to throw down with that Sam Jackson monologue, that he's so famous for.
Right.
Where he the words just flow out of him and his voice rises and falls, rises and falls. I mean, you're just like hanging on his every word. I thought we would get that Sam Jackson monologue at some point in the prequels, but we just couldn't because he was so stoic and so stodgy, Jedi stodginess. So, Ahsoka to me is a more vibrant, a more colorful character, and that's because of Ashley. And that's the young Ahsoka. There's a difference. There's two different Ahsokas. Young Ahsoka, old Ahsoka. So young Sheldon, Big Bang Theory Sheldon.
Right. Well, it's coming down to the wire here. We're not too far, about 4 weeks away, as a matter of fact, from the Ahsoka series premiere, August 23rd. That's a Wednesday. And Rebel Force, it's a double feature. Two episodes are going to drop. And Rebel Force Radio will be there that night with a live after show. We'll be taking your phone calls. We'll be, tossing our theories and ideas around. It's going to be lots of fun. So you don't want to miss it. So make sure that you are subscribed to us on YouTube. Make sure you got those notifications coming and that you're following us on all of our socials, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Although Twitter is now X. I heard about that today. They're changing the name of Twitter. Whatever, the artist formerly known as Twitter, that'll be where you'll find us.
What's the new one? The Facebook one?
Threads.
I think that's where you'll be able to find us now. I don't know. Twitter's putting a bad taste in my mouth. Worse than the taste I've had in my mouth about Twitter for the past decade and a half.
All right.
Yes.
Before we go in and check in with John Marcoux, the mythological blueprint of Mandalorian Season 3, we've got a few news stories that we want to bring to you. So let's do that right now.
I have good news for you, my lord.
That's good news. Come closer, I have good news.
When did all this become about the numbers? It's all about the numbers now. Who cares about box office numbers, budgets? But you know what? That's what we do here at Rebel Force Radio. We comb through all of these stories, including this one from Forbes. Disney spends $49 million on Star Wars spinoff, The Acolyte. But here's the catch, gang. That's just pre-production. $49 million pre-production. So that is before any cameras roll. $49 million. So it looks like that Acolyte is going to come in a little north of $100 million for season 1. Putting that in perspective, Book of Boba Fett and all seasons of Mandalorian are around that number, coming in about $105 million. Kenobi, the bottom in terms of budget, $90 million for the whole series. $90 million. Top dog, as far as budget is concerned, Andor, over $200 million for that show. I believe that's just the first season, although that's just the first season. $200 million for Andor. One of the reasons for that is that they were really in the height of COVID, and so there were so many protocols that they needed to make sure that they had handled, and that did escalate the costs. Here's a surprise.
And they built a little city out in the middle of a field.
Well, yeah,
England.
sure.
Yeah. That'll do it too.
That helps.
Kenobi, obviously, largely shot in the volume, same
Right.
costs. And Andor had a giant cast. Kenobi, not really. You know?
Right? Kenobi is a
there were-
small show, considering
And the characters that came along came and went. you know,
Right.
So
Right. Skeleton Crew, surprisingly, is rumored to be right around $136 million. $136 million. So between Andor and shows like Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett. But here's the thing. They buried the lead because you have to scroll pretty far down until you get to this little number. How do you like this? Quoting the story, perhaps the biggest name among its ranks, the ranks of Acolyte cast members, only came to light a few days ago when it was revealed that Keanu Reeves will have a cameo in the show. He joins Matrix co-star Carrie-Anne Moss, who is reportedly playing a Jedi when the Warriors were at the peak of their power. So Keanu Reeves joining the cast, at least in terms of a cameo of of the Acolyte. This is, I mean, Jim, I didn't hear any of this. We follow this news pretty closely. This is clearly a leak. It sounds as though, from what I've been able to, I did a little bit of research this afternoon. It seems like this leak came through the giant robot website, one of those, sci-fi pop culture sites.
Well, I thought this was coming from Forbes. I didn't know this was coming
No. Forbes is confirming the news of Keanu Reeves. I went back and said, well, wait a minute. Where did Forbes get this information? Forbes got this information either from Lucasfilm as a confirmation, but originally it was leaked through a website. So I got a couple of thoughts on this. What can we take away from this? Well, one, Keanu Reeves is going to be in the series, and he's using this as an opportunity to reunite with Carrie-Anne Moss, this iconic co-star from the Matrix films. But the other thing is, where does this show rank? I mean, in terms of Lucasfilm priority, you got Kenobi, which is sort of sitting there at the bottom in terms of budget. You got Andor up there at the top, and you got Acolyte sitting right there with Book of Boba Fett, Mandalorian season 1 through 3. So I think this shows that Disney at least was, or still is, quite serious about this show. The second thing that jumped into my mind, Jim, is we don't even have a premiere date for this show. We are
just 2024.
Right. We are 1 month away from, less than a month away from the premiere of AHSOKA. And Lucasfilm, Disney has always been very, very focused about promoting the thing that they want to focus the market's attention to. How is it that all this Acolyte news is just showing up just seemingly out of nowhere? Information about the budget, they're promoting the cast, and we don't even know if it's the next show that's going to be showing up on Disney Plus. In fact, I don't think it will be after AHSOKA. I don't think it's going to go
Skeleton
AHSOKA.
Crew.
Right, a Skeleton Crew. So the news about Acolyte seems to be leapfrogging not just AHSOKA, but also Skeleton Crew. Stories about the budget, stories about the cast and, all of the ground that it's breaking, the ceiling, the glass ceiling that it's breaking in terms of the makeup of its cast. It's very odd to me as far as the priorities about what Lucasfilm is pushing out there. This news about Keanu Reeves. Don't you think that this would have been something that they would have sat on? No one heard of this. Wouldn't they have sat on this information until closer to the premiere of a show like The Acolyte? Why tell us perhaps more than a year away from it's showing up on Disney Plus that Keanu has a cameo. I don't know.
A cameo too. I mean,
right.
They were able to keep it very quiet that Jack Black and Lizzo were going to show up in season 3 of The Mandalorian.
Great point.
But maybe upon hearing that news, they realized the fans would burn the house down. Keanu Reeves doesn't elicit that sort of negative response because I think he would fit right in Star Wars. I mean, that's debatable, of course, but that's just how I see it. I think he's a good actor. Also, productions that Favreau and Filoni run are super secretive.
Aha. Okay.
They're well known for that.
Right.
The Acolyte is being run out of England by Leslie Headland.
Right.
Who might not keep things on the down low as much. And with the Acolyte being shot in England, I think it means that production has continued to move forward on that show, just not using any members of the American Union.
Right. Yes. Yes. And the reason that we're getting the information that we are about the Acolyte budget is because in the UK, shows that are made in the UK, they benefit from the television tax relief. Forbes calls it a scheme. It seems like a loaded term, but television tax relief scheme, which allows studios to claim a cash reimbursement of up to 25% of the money they spend in the country. So they're providing jobs and stimulating the economy of the UK. So therefore, the UK incentivizes that activity by providing this tax credit. We do something very similar in the state of Ohio for films that are shot here as well as theater.
Sure.
But there's a condition. The condition is, in order to qualify for this tax relief in the UK, you have to spend at least 1.3 million pounds or 1 million pounds or $1.3 million per broadcast hour, which is roughly what these Disney Plus series are. So that's why we know they have to do all this filing work with the government over in the UK. And it also forces them to create these little corporations. So in this case, the corporation is called the Blue Stockings Society, which is, I guess, based on, according to this, a mid-18th century informal women's social and educational movement from England, which emphasized education and mutual cooperation, blah, 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 blah. So we know that there's a lot of, feminist and feminism ideas, being talked about by the creators. Whether it shows up in the show, who knows? But nonetheless, we know that what this budget is because of these television production companies, these TPCs, they have to file public records. Very different than in the U.S., Jim, where these budgets are kept very, very tight. Not only are the budgets kept very tight, the streaming numbers are kept very tight. It's very difficult to sort of equate the success of these with box office. We talked about the Indiana Jones box office and all this. You go to Box Office Mojo, it's all reported. It pours onto these sites. Streaming has really changed the game in terms of these industries like radio, like television, like films that were very quantifiable. Now they don't seem to be as quantifiable, or at least they're not sharing that information.
Right. And the lack of transparency about how successful these streaming series actually are is what has led us to the writer's strike and the actor's strike, because all of these creatives feel like that information is being withheld from them, so they are getting screwed out of a paycheck. And you know what? They're probably right.
They probably are.
So it's unfortunate, but everything kind of bounces off each other in the industry, and that's where we're at today. So,
but how about that? You got a story on Forbes with a headline: Disney spends $49 million on Star Wars spinoff The Acolyte. And they go into this stuff about Bob Iger talking about cutting costs and all of this, and they're saying, hey, they spent almost $50 million, and that's just pre-production. And then buried, multiple paragraphs under there is, oh yeah, by the way, Keanu Reeves, who's a Hollywood A-lister, is doing a cameo so he can reunite with his co-star from The Matrix, Carrie-Anne Moss. By the way, I'm not sure that I'm wild about the idea of Star Wars being used as a gimmick to put the two of them together in some sort of reunion. Save that for another franchise. Let's not do that with Star Wars, but whatever.
Save that for another franchise like The Matrix. Right. I mean, come on.
Exactly.
We don't like gimmicky crap being injected into our Star Wars. We just don't.
No.
So let's not. But Keanu Reeves, I am a fan. So I did some digging and reached out to some of my sources, and they laid on me. They said, I can't give you much, but I can give you a little audio clip, a taste of what it's going to sound like when Keanu Reeves shows up on the Acolyte. So I said, can't you just give me the video? They said, no, audio only. Because these guys could get in a lot of trouble for leaking this stuff, obviously. I think I'm dealing with the same people who leak stuff to Forbes and Big Hairy Robot or whatever those websites are.
So what do we got? We got some exclusive audio here?
Just sound. Sound of Keanu Reeves on the Acolyte set. This is a scene. I can't tell you if this is a rehearsal or if this is an actual scene, but you'll clearly hear Keanu Reeves' voice in this audio. And we don't have the visual, but it sure sounds Star Wars-y to me.
All right. Well, let's listen.
I'm Darth Ted. Well, I'm Lucille, and you're not my father. No. I'll never rule the universe with you. Oh. Hey, Bill. What? We totally don't know how to sword fight.
Wow, man. This show keeps getting better and better.
I'm telling you, this could be a real sleeper. The Acolyte.
Oh. Hey, last week, Jim, you made a sort of a passing comment about Tem Morrison making some statements at a convention about what he might like to see happen with his character, Boba Fett, and the fact that he was actually going from this convention in London to L.A. to meet with Lucasfilm or to stop by. I don't know if he's just doing a drive-by or if he was invited, but at any rate, we have the video of that exchange that he had with a fan. It looks like he's being interviewed at the same time he's doing the signing. This is from the London Film and Comic Con, took place earlier this month. And so here we'll cut to Tem. So take it away, Tem.
What other man with such a luscious voice and a wonderful face would play Captain Rex? Another beloved character.
I'd actually love to bring President Rex alive.
Of course. You heard it here. Get the call, John. All right?
Yes.
Now,
we think there's a few things happening in LA. I'm happy to pop in to LA on the way home.
Okay.
To New Zealand.
Okay.
Just and have a catch up and see what's happening.
Okay.
See what's happening in the galaxy.
See if maybe we get a little bit of news about season 2 Boba Fett. I know a lot of people are looking for a lot of different things. Maybe we'll get to see Omega in the next season as well.
Yeah. Well, this is why I was going to pop in and just see what's going on.
Gotcha.
And make sure they're not going to put me on a shelf.
Right. No.
Never. We can't have that, right?
Of course not. But you?
There's plenty of time to be put on the shelf, right?
Yeah.
All right.
What? That's
So Tem is
translate for me. I had trouble hearing.
Yeah, sorry. It is tough. It's a tough clip. So there's a couple of things that they talk about here. One is he drops that he would love to be the actor to bring Captain Rex to life, live action.
Oh yes. Oh, there's no other. Yeah.
He would. Of course, he needs to do that. It would be great. The person interviewing him there at this convention throws out the idea that maybe we could see an Omega showing up in a future project with Tem as older Boba Fett. He kind of gives a little nod. I don't know that Tem knows who Omega is. I mean, maybe he does. I'm giving the benefit of the doubt. I don't know if Tem's streaming the Bad Batch. But then the interviewer throws out, well, what about a Boba Fett season 2? And Tem says, well, that's what I'm stopping on my way back to LA to he's real coy about it, to have a chat to see what's going on in a galaxy far, far away. So he has a meeting with Lucasfilm. It appears, although Tem strikes me as the kind of guy that doesn't need an invitation. That if he's coming through the neighborhood, he's going to show up and just knock on the door and say, "Hey, I'm part of this family. What's going on?"
He's there at the gate of Skywalker Ranch, hitting the buzzer.
Let me in. Tell him it's Boba.
And they're like, "Sir, you need an appointment."
I don't need one. I'm Boba. Let me in.
Sir, where's your car?
I walked here from London. Let's talk about what's going on.
But what makes this clip great is he's signing a Funko Pop for a fan, and he's working the crowd, and you want to see this, you want to see that, and of course the fans are very reactive, and he's like, we got to make sure that they don't put me on the shelf, and he kind of holds the like he's setting up the Funko Pop up on the shelf. So part of this feels like this is some lobbying going on, some public lobbying by Tem.
Yes.
But there might be an aspect of this actually being a real meeting that he's going to at Lucasfilm, and the future of his character. His character is still alive and well in the Mando timeline, so there's no reason why we couldn't see him. He's the daimyo of Tatooine, taking over for Bib Fortuna. So, it's definitely possible. There's a role for Tem.
I think there's definitely a future for Boba Fett in Star Wars, whether it's second season of the Book of Boba Fett or just appearances here and there in other series. I think it's inevitable we'll be seeing Tem as Boba again.
What do you think about the idea of him being Rex? Now, the fact that he's because I know some people were hoping for a Rex cameo in AHSOKA for these flashbacks.
Yeah.
Though, based on this, Tem's not known for his subtlety. I don't think he's the best guy at keeping secrets. So, if he was about to be seen by millions of people in AHSOKA season 1 as Captain Rex, I just feel like there would have been some more visual tells, in his face and his delivery. Based on what I'm seeing in this clip, I don't think it's happening in season 1. I could be wrong.
Or
maybe he's a better
secret keeper. Maybe they scanned him and they're going to deep fake him in there and they're not even going to tell him.
Maybe that's why they want to call him in. Say, hey, we got to let you know you are in the show. You just don't know it.
Yeah. Interesting.
He's going to shove a lizard
why would
up their
Tem
nose.
be hip? Oh, again, Tem, he's probably not part of the AFTRA SAG union, being a New Zealander.
Yeah.
I don't know how that works.
Whether or not he can take a meeting?
Well, if he was SAG-AFTRA, he wouldn't be taking any meetings.
Well, let's see. This happened July 7th through the 9th. This might have been just before the strike.
Just before. Yeah.
He might have gotten that meeting in.
Okay. Yes.
But
then that would have been before the strike, the actors' strike.
So yeah. Sorry, the audio wasn't super clean. Though something tells me.
I don't blame you. I blame Tem.
Unfortunately, he's on mic in this clip. I don't know if it's a podcast or it felt to me like it was maybe a satellite radio that was there, or maybe a British radio station or something. It didn't look like a podcast setup to me, so that audio might be cleaner somewhere else. But this was all captured by a fan that was signing, or that was getting a signing from Tem. So, well, speaking of Mandalorians, this was a bit of a surprise. I wouldn't say a shock, but it's a surprise that the Mandalorian is getting its own spin-off special this fall in October. It's not what you think, though. It's not. Wouldn't it be great if it was the adventures of Mando and Grogu and their Halloween adventures their Halloween story together. It kind of is, but it's a Lego special.
Yeah.
So it's called Mandoween. And how do we know this? That's because at San Diego Comic-Con, at the Lego booth, there was a banner that had a bunch of coming attractions on there, and one of them was Lego Star Wars Mandoween Celebrate the Season. So this has not been officially announced by Lucasfilm or Disney. There's a number of Lego specials that look like they're going to be making their way, including, what is this? Lego Masters Holiday Bricktacular. So if you're a fan of that show, a lot of families watch that. We watch that in our house, Lego Masters. Lego Masters Season 4, Lego Disney Princess, The Castle Quest, Lego Friends, The Next Chapter. But the one that caught our eye, of course, is Lego Star Wars Mandoween Celebrate the Season. Speculation is that it could be showing up on September 29th or October 6th. And that's based on when previous similar shows were dropped on Disney Plus. We know that we've had in the past, we've had the Lego Star Wars Holiday Special. And then there was the Terrifying Tales, Lego Terrifying Tales. And then this past summer, we had Star Wars Summer Vacation, all Lego.
Oh, that was hideous.
Specials.
God, they have to do better than that.
That one was
That
weak.
might have been one of the worst Star Wars in any medium that I've ever seen. That was just
Look,
awful.
the holiday special one I liked, if not just for Billy D. Williams saying,
That was fine.
Off-world Jawas.
Yeah, no, we enjoyed that. I gave a favorable review to that. I couldn't even finish Summer Vacation, and I sure the heck am not going to insult our listeners by actually holding a conversation about it. That was terrible. But it still was better than the second season of Star Wars Visions.
Oh, here comes the
Now, my
hate mail.
question...
Show
my question here is, my question here is why do they have to call it Mandoween Celebrate the Season? Just call it Mandoween. Celebrate the Season. Why do you have to tack that onto it?
That's kind of weird.
It's already called Lego Star Wars Mandoween. That's all you need.
Yeah.
Celebrate the Season. What the heck kind of corny, sugary BS is that to add on? What are you guys being paid by the word for these titles? I mean, that's just nonsensical. Celebrate the season.
Lego
what is that even
Star
supposed to
Wars.
mean?
Yeah. Put it all together. Lego Star Wars Mandoween Celebrate the Season. Sounds like a podcast we once heard with their long titles.
I know who you're talking about. But, it's just ridiculous. It's ridiculousness. You guys tone it down a little bit. Celebrate the season. We're talking about Halloween. It's not even a season. It's one day. Halloween. October 31st.
Our research suggests...
It's not a season.
Our
It's not a
research
season.
suggests that the average viewer does not equate Halloween with a season. So we think that we might have to... You know how that goes.
Just enough.
Yeah, it's a mixed bag with the Lego stuff. It's back, Jim. I can't remember the gentleman's name. He was a writer for The Simpsons. We had him on the show many years ago. Michael Price, when the initial Lego specials came out, and they were hilarious. And we loved them. And even the Yoda Chronicles and some of them I watched with my kids, and they were really funny. I never got into that. What was this? The actual
Freemaker
series?
Adventures.
Freemaker. I never got into that. Yeah, I know you saw a few of those.
I saw them all.
You saw them all. Okay, yeah, because Matt Wood was doing those, and
yeah.
I didn't catch those, but there has been a decline in the quality of the Lego specials, and that summer one from this summer. Was it this summer? I think it was this summer.
Last summer. I want to peel my eyeballs out watching that show. It was so terrible.
Yeah.
It was terrible. God, was it bad.
I mean, you got Grogu, you got Din Djarin. Now, here's a question. Is it possible that Pedro Pascal could be doing the voice of Din Djarin if it's all about Mandoween? What? Well,
they need him for at least that, Right? But I wouldn't be surprised if they got someone who could double the voice for the Lego show. That wouldn't be anything out of the ordinary.
No, it wouldn't.
Not like Daisy Ridley's not voicing Rey in the Lego shows.
Right.
It's just very rare. Like, I know Kelly Marie Tran voiced Rose in one episode.
Billy D is Lando.
Of course, Billy D.
Right. Anthony Daniels is C-3PO.
Well,
of course.
He's about as solid as they get when it comes to recapturing your role. But that's about it. It doesn't really go much deeper than that.
You'll get Matt Lanter coming in as Anakin generally. You'll get James Arnold Taylor. So you get a lot of the
animation guys,
animation actors in there. But yeah, as far as the live action, it's fairly few and far between. But you never know.
Pedro
he's a pretty
Pascal
busy guy these days.
He's one of the hottest commodities in Hollywood acting right now.
Yeah.
Well, if there wasn't a writer's strike, he would be. But now there are no commodities.
Right.
So, bummer.
Well, we'll be following this one with great interest as we get more information.
Yes, indeed.
But for now, I think it's time to check in with our buddy John Marcoux. I think the yoga mats are rolled out. We're ready with the tea and whatever else. Namaste.
Yes. Yeah,
and let's head into the Buddha Hut for Mandalorian Season 3, the mythological blueprint. Our own Jedi Yogi. We love him. John Marcoux joining us.
Glad to be back. Thank you. What an intro. I've got nothing to say. Unimprovable.
Well, we always hear from the listeners when you're on. They love it. You blow minds. You're absolutely steeped in mythology, lore, all of that stuff, history. And, it's interesting because it's not just the characters in Star Wars that follow some of these mythological arcs. In this case, it's seasons of TV shows that are following these arcs. So it's not just one hero's journey for a lot of these characters. It's multiple hero's journeys. And in the case, though, of Mandalorian Season 3, now, John, I know you're not as buried in the Star Wars fandom as Mac and me, but I can tell you that one of the points of debate since Season 3 of The Mandalorian amongst fans and even bandied about with the creatives of the show is, well, who is the Mandalorian? Who is the central title character of this show? Is it Din Djarin? And yeah, if you watch Season 1 and 2, you would assume that. Then Season 3 comes around and you've got Bo-Katan. So what do you think after seeing Season 3? Is there room for more than one hero, more than one protagonist when we're talking about the hero's journey?
I think every Mandalorian you saw in Season 3 played a heroic role. And there was even a moment when they were about to drop in and Bo-Katan was urging them on. And she said, and I think the writer must have had the idea of the David Bowie song on, said, "You can be heroes, or we can be heroes." And my head snapped back when I heard that. As to the specific question you just asked, it's an 8-episode season. And the episode 1 through 3 arc, Bo-Katan has a perfect hero's adventure, beginning to end. But it's over at the end of episode 3. She uses these newfound powers, and she goes on and does heroic things. But this season is Din Djarin's, and I can lay out what I think about those two of you.
Wow, that does fly in contrast to, like I said, even some of the things that the creatives behind the series have said publicly that this was Bo-Katan's story, but you're saying her story is sort of wrapped after episode 3, and now it's back to Din Djarin and the Mando.
Every hero starts off the adventure with something needed, something calling, something that's not fulfilled in their lives, and there's a calling to adventure, an acceptance, a debate, an acceptance, and then they're off and running into adventures, obstacles, animals and creatures and monsters they have to face. And then by the end of the third act, they come out and they are transformed. And when it comes to Bo-Katan, she starts off a non-believer in episode 1, and is transformed into a believer. She starts off isolated by herself in her castle, and by the end of episode 3, all the Mandos in the covert are tapping her on the shoulder and have welcomed her in. And that is that's the proper, if you're blueprinting, if you're up on a whiteboard saying, how do we arc this hero's story from beginning to end, whether it's a 90-minute movie, 3-episode arc, 3-season arc, whatever, all the beats are hit in the first 3 episodes. And she is super energized. She's found new energies and new powers that were lying latent, and then she deploys them. But as far as the hero, yeah, she steals the show for the first 3 episodes. I'll give you that. Now, let me just talk about the beats for a second. She's isolated at the beginning. You know, when Mando visits her and walks down that long corridor, you've seen this in other movies and shows. Heart of Darkness, Joseph Conrad was ripped off by Apocalypse Now. That's in the same visual. King Theoden in Lord of the Rings, when Grima Wormtongue is whispering in his ear, you couldn't get anywhere near the guy. And on TV the past couple of years, you've seen Vladimir Putin sitting at a table that's 500 feet long, won't let anybody near him. That's isolation.
Yeah. Right.
Isolated. See what I'm saying?
Yes.
And in the first 2 of those episodes, episode and a half, when Bo-Katan is fighting with those inner powers, she runs a list. Look at the vocabulary she uses, everything she says. Do you remember when I visited you for Solo and I said everything the guy says in the movie is optimistic, except for one moment, the moment before he meets the love of his life, the Millennium Falcon. He turns pessimistic. And he's like, I don't like this guy. I don't like where this is going. Let's get out of here. And then he turns the corner and he sees the Millennium Falcon. And look at Bo-Katan in the beginning of this 3-episode arc. Everything she says, go home, there's nothing left. It's a fairy tale. Planet has been ravaged, plundered, and poisoned. There's nothing left. We've mined for Beskar. The rest is superstition. I once ruled, now it's ashes. And when Grogu comes and asks for her help to get the captured Din out of trouble, her immediate reaction before she even knows that there's trouble says, let's get rid of him once for all. Maybe I didn't make myself clear the last time. Then she goes and rescues him and says, there's nothing magic about the waters. Look around. There's nothing left. A great society is now a memory. Yeah, I swam in the waters as a child. I put on a show, made Daddy proud, reciting the Mandalorian creed. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Everything she says is negative.
Yeah. And that might contribute, what you list out, it might contribute to why some fans don't love the character. You know, she's not an AHSOKA, which is just almost universally loved. There's some division, and there is a relentless negativity that comes out of her in those early episodes.
We saw this in Luke Skywalker when he was saying, no, I don't want to help you. And at the very end, he comes through at the end before he evaporates into the ether, meditating. Anyway, it's only when she sacrifices herself and dives in after Din do the things change. That is the moment. That's a halfway point in it's the midpoint in the 3-arc episode that she's the hero in. If you look at Step Brothers, the first half of the movie, they hate each other. They're fighting with each other. You touch my drums. You touch my drums.
Oh,
and
he
then
touched his drums. I can't wait for the mythological blueprint of the of Step Brothers. That's almost worth a Patreon exclusive.
Yeah. After Dumb and Dumber, we'll do that one.
I'm ready to do it. Let's do a double header on April 1st next year. We'll do an April Fool's double header. Let me just quickly summarize. After her 3-arc episode where the heroic part is over, she's nothing but supercharged hero. She leads the rescue to save the child snatched by that pterodactyl. She recons the home planet to set up a safe perimeter. She decisively calls for reinforcements when they're pinned down. And if she waits even 5 seconds, it could be a whole different story. And she jumps into the Moff Gideon boss level brawl at the very end and teams up with Grogu and Din to finally take this guy out, along with the ship that incinerates it. But that's just the first 3 episodes. Over the 8-episode arc, Din is the hero. Allow me to lay out some of my evidence. 1, the season opens with him and the season closes with him. That's what you do to a hero. You show where they are at the beginning of the adventures. You show where they are at the end. It opens with him saving the day. He arrives mid-fight when that beast comes out of the water during the initiation ceremony. And the season closes with him saving the day in several ways. He defeats Moff Gideon. He adopts Grogu as a son and takes him on as an apprentice. He barters for the IG-11 assassin droid head that they need. He commissions a new marshal for Navarro, the IG-11 reconstituted droid. And he settles into a fatherhood at an idyllic cabin where Grogu can play in nature with frogs and grow up as a little boy in between the various adventures they're going to be on. So on that alone, just the opening and the closing framework, it's Din's season. That's one of three things I have to say about this.
All right, so the hero is placed as bookends on any sort of adventure story. It always begins with your main hero, and it always ends with your main hero. Yes, that seems very consistent throughout fiction.
Movie guys, cinematographers, they're always looking at the first image and the last image. Those usually are symbolic indicators of where it starts and where it ends. And you can see the poor guy becomes rich, the idiot gets smart, the lonely person becomes, embraced by the crowd, whatever it is. Those bookends are very telling.
Yeah. All right, so what are your other two?
The common thread throughout the season is Din's persevering, almost obstinate faith. When whoever he encounters is telling him, you can't do it, man. You can't do it. He's got Apollo Creed telling him, come on, I got a plot of land for you. You don't want to be messing around with any of that stuff. But again and again, he says, I have a duty. I have a mission. I am going. This is my creed. This is the way. He just sticks to it, and nothing can stop him. And there's a beauty to that if you're tracing that across the 8 episodes. So,
he's fully committed to his faith, is what you're saying.
Yeah. The armorer tells him, you can't be redeemed because those waters that can redeem you are gone. And he's like, no, I'm going. And then he shows up to Bo-Katan, and she's like, hey, man, there's nothing there. Forget it. He's like, I'm going. And he comes, you know what I mean? He's just, if you watch him, he's just a stubborn son of a bitch. And it's based on a deep faith that sustains everybody. So in this sense, Din Djarin, who used to play the physical hero and the psychological hero, is actually playing a kind of spiritual hero. He's the guy that keeps the morale up and keeps hope alive when everybody else is shaking their head left and right. It's a new place for him. But if you look, he shows up to Bo-Katan's castle and he nudges her. No, this is where we need to go. He sends Grogu for the rescue. He nudges her. He draws out her hero by being captured. It's not the best plan, but it draws out her best sense. Yeah. And he creates the situation by which she can now take possession of the Darksaber without fighting him directly. It's a brilliant twist right there, where they didn't have to go to the death and she gets possession of it. And he jolts her. There's a point at which he just jolts her, and you could see it on her face when he says, without the creed, what are we? What do we stand for? Our people are scattered like stars in the galaxy. The creed is how we survive. And that's when she blurts out, all right, I'll take you. I'll take you to the waters. He convinces her there's something that goes past her logic. And that's Din's hero adventure, to be that guy for her. And you need her. She's going to lead the commanders. You got the armorer, who's a shaman, who's kind of leading them on a different level. I actually think she is the true leader. But just like Iran has like a kind of prime minister present guy, and then you got the Ayatollah off to the side, there's like multi-pronged. There's a multi-pronged leadership here. You got the King of England, but you also have the prime minister who's running the day-to-day stuff, So there's room for more leaders here. Now, the third reason I think it's Din's hero adventure is because he delivers the most heroic moment in season 3. And it's not slaying dragons. There's a lot of them to slay. By the way, I love season 3. The first time I saw it, there was one mythological, I always just try to enjoy it. There was such a mythological moment, I couldn't think for the rest of the season, but I just watched it again and I just loved it.
You're making me love it more. I tell you what.
Okay, so in episode 6, which is 3/4 of the way through the season plus, And it's also the moment in most good movies when the hero all of a sudden rises up and charges the castle again and makes it all possible. That like, oh shit, nothing. Oh my God, they got it. You know, that kind of moment.
Yeah.
When you look at where that moment is timed, Din addresses Bo-Katan's alienated tribe with honesty, self-sacrifice, and loyalty to the way by explaining that he was captured, Bo-Katan bested his captor, and therefore is the rightful owner of the Darksaber. That's the turning point that brings the whole tribe together. And sometimes the highest heroism is physical, sometimes it's psychological, and sometimes it's moral. And this is a moment of insane integrity. I mean, think about it. He has the power. He has the ring of power, if you will. He has something that if he wants, he can keep and hold on to and profit from personally and through reputation and everything. And he gives it up. And it's reminiscent of one of the great ancient legends from ancient Rome, the story of Cincinnatus. I don't know if you're familiar with Cincinnatus.
I don't know that one, no.
Okay, 458 BC. He's an elder statesman with a lot of military history.
Right, Mac was just a boy.
That's right. And he you know, and he's kind of old, not old, but he's kind of old now. And he gets a little piece of parcel, sets up a cabin, has a farm, and he just takes care of his farm. He's just off into the woods with his dog, you know, reading poetry. It's over. And there's an invasion. And there are no generals of any ilk. You know, they've kind of gone soft. There hasn't been any fights for a while. So the citizens call on him to be the leader, to serve. And he assumes complete control of the state. That's how it was back then. He basically became a dictator, drafted all the guys, went off to war, beat the bastards in 16 days and came back. And everybody waiting for him, just like every other Roman general who comes back as a conqueror and becomes the guy, were expecting that he was about to become the dictator until whatever happened. And he comes back into town, hands the keys over and says, "We won," walks right back to his farm, picks up the plow where it was in the field and continues farming.
Wow.
He doesn't have to be the guy. Same thing with Din Djarin here. That's the highest level when you don't need it. And he doesn't need it.
You know, I recall some of us, including me, criticizing or thinking that it was a plot hole, that it took a couple of episodes for Din to relinquish the Darksaber. He didn't do it right away. She earned it back in, what was that, episode 2. He relinquishes it, as you said, episode 6. So we go 4 episodes after the time that she technically earns it. And, you know, I was sitting there saying, oh, I think this might be sloppy writing or disjointed writing. And what you're explaining is that one way to look at this is, one, the role that Din is playing in this season as sort of the as you say, the spiritual leader, and things are happening time-wise for a reason. He knows, seizes the moment when to give her the saber. He may have made up his mind right after she earned it that he was going to give it to her, but he was waiting for the right moment. And, you know, sometimes his fans were like, why didn't they do it then? Well, because it makes better dramatic sense to do it later.
True. But it pays off to have more witnesses see what goes down, because all of those people surrounding them, they all want Bo to take that Darksaber because she had it before and they were all good with that. So she had majority support of the crowd, and that, I think, makes it more difficult for her to turn it down when she has all that pressure on her. It certainly was the right time. It was the timing, yes. Yeah. Right.
But think about it. When following the way, there isn't a book with rules. You know, Roman numeral 1, A4. You know, you don't look it up like the rules of golf or Robert's Rules of Orders. There are some basic precepts, and you have to constantly interpret them. And on the surface, the rule was you have to best somebody to take the sword away, and she didn't best him. So I thought it was very innocent, because when you watch, she just gives it back, and they don't even think about it. And so I thought that was the case. He may have had it in his mind, but the way he argued it to the crowd, it reminded me of an ancient primitive culture, like Cicero arguing something, and it was just beautiful in its simplicity, and it really landed well in episode 6.
Speaking of ancient cultures, though, there's something that I had the feeling while I was watching season 3. There's a feeling I was getting about that Darksaber itself, and I started to associate it with a false god for the Mandalorians. It's like a golden calf. You know, they worship this thing, and where does it take them? Does it really have the power that they assume it has?
Well, it certainly cut through that thick steel wall. I mean, on pure physics, it had power. But in terms of associating a bigger power with it, like the office of the presidency or something like that,
yeah.
Moff Gideon actually mocks her in that last fight, said, hey, you really like your trinkets. You're not much without them. And the lesson of the season is, no, we work together well. There's a combination of the tribes coming together. There's a combination of the armorer, Din, and Bo-Katan serving as a triumvirate leadership coming together. It's really important. Like in A New Hope, when Luke gets the lightsaber, it has power. It'll cut you in half. It has physics power, but there's a mental, spiritual power that's associated with it. So it's important for a guy like Obi-Wan to hand what's called an amulet, something signifying something bigger, the goodness with which it's wielded. And,
it is Excalibur, after all, right? It is Excalibur.
There it is. Yes.
And the Darksaber is as well for the Mandalorians.
And I think it's a really appropriate weapon to be handled and transferred here, because when you're asking yourself, why did Din hand it over so easily? It didn't look like it was a very difficult thing for him to do. In episode 7, he states what his motivations were. He's like, me and my people don't care about the Darksaber or bloodline or your office or your crown on your head, your tiara. Honor, loyalty, and character. And that's right out of the samurai books. Honor, loyalty, and character. And when it comes to character, that's broken down by the samurai experts as courage. He's got that. Perseverance. The guy never stops fighting. Honesty, teamwork, self-regulation, holding yourself in order. Humility. He doesn't need to be the guy as long as the way is followed. And then loyalty and hope. There is some hope in every fight. You hope you're going to win. You hope you're going to prevail, even though everything looks bad. And it just goes on and on and on. Samurai talk about get knocked down 8 times, get up 9, like a self-righting doll. Like that. If that's not a Mandalorian fighting, what is that? It's so samurai. And so for him to say, I don't give a shit about the sword, it's all about the way. Honor, loyalty, character. For me, that was the moment. I was like, Din's the guy. Din's the guy.
Yeah, that was a good moment. A really good moment. And also, he helped define Bo-Katan, too, who I felt was largely non-definable throughout the series, because she was never really communicating with the other characters, specifically about encountering the Mythosaur. She did talk to the armorer about it, but she didn't share her feelings about the experience ever. It obviously had some sort of profound effect on her, but she never articulated that to anyone. She just told the armorer what she saw, and the armorer half wrote it off as vision. You know, there are many who have experienced the vision of the Mythosaur. We as an audience, though, I think it's pretty crystal clear to us that that big sucker is underwater. I mean, that's the real deal. But to Bo, it was like a profound religious experience that I think gave her come to God moment. And so after that moment, she didn't remove her helmet until the armorer specifically gave her permission to do so. She started to walk the walk of the way. And so it was just that sight of seeing the Mythosaur. Again, maybe another false god for the Mandalorians. I don't know. But it sure shocked her to the core and made her all of a sudden more open to her faith. That's how I saw it.
That was the midpoint. That was the midpoint of the season. That was the moment of the season. That was the moment that grabbed me by the throat, and I couldn't stop thinking about it for the next 4 episodes, the Mythosaur. I've done a lot of thinking and reading about it, and so I'd like to share some of that.
I want to know about the Mythosaur.
Both Bo-Katan and reading the plaque and talking about it, and the armor talking about it, like, oh, that's the songs of the old eons. That's a myth. You know, that they were saying that before. And to Jimmy's point, when she came back and talked to the armor about it, did you see the movie This Is the End? It's a comedy from about 10, 15 years ago.
It's about the end of the world, right? And all these celebrities are sort of playing themselves as if the world's about to end.
In the first act, the world is literally opening up in craters, and rocks are coming and smashing people. And they run from 7-Eleven to a party where all these hipster Hollywood people are like, the world's ending, the world's ending. And Seth Rogen doesn't want to look uncool by saying that to all the cool people. So there's like a few minutes of shock before everybody starts realizing what's happened. But I think what happened to Bo-Katan is she saw it and she knew it was real. But if she opened her mouth and said anything, everybody would call her crazy. So I think that was a very real and human initial reaction, because when they ejected out of the water and Din came to, she said, hey, did you see anything down there? He's like what? And she's like, nothing. You know what I mean? She didn't. She was still processing it. She was still processing it herself. Now let's talk about that rescue. Din Djarin walks into the water saying the initiation, the creed, about what he's going to do. And then he drops into the water so fast, and she dives in. Now, she chases him with the rocket pack on her back to the bottom. He's already at the bottom. The laws of physics don't make sense there. No matter how heavy his shit was on his back and all that stuff, he shouldn't have been waiting at the bottom.
We talked a lot about that, yes.
Yeah. And the laws of physics aren't working like that. It immediately struck me that we're not in reality anymore. This is a dreamscape. We're in a different place now. And it's actually the mythic depths of the unconscious. Whenever you hear Carl Jung or Joseph Campbell or any of these guys talking about it, it's always a deep dive into dark waters. So this is a thinly veiled metaphor for something big is happening here. And I have some Jung and Campbell quotes if you want. But basically, Bo-Katan is diving into her own unconscious here, as well as diving into the waters to save him. And these are her family's waters, by the way. She was daddy's girl. Now, what Jung says is the dream opens us to the innermost and most secret recesses of the soul, that cosmic night, and all unifying depth, which was psyche before there was ego. So before it was like me, I can't get the sword, I can't be the leader. That's out the door once she hits the water. She literally becomes egoless. Joseph Campbell notes that here is where the golden seeds are to be found. And if we can manage to go down there and pull up even one or a small handful of them, you bring them up to the surface of your conscious, and you have everything necessary to regenerate your life, the life of those people around you, your families, your friends, your colleagues, and for the greatest heroes, entire civilizations. That is not measured until after they come back up to the surface and go forth with these newfound energies. So she forgets her own damned self. She serves another, rescues another. She finds her seeds. And during the ascent, now that she's coming back up from the moment, that's when she sees the Mythosaur tusk and the eye. She gasps. If you look at the video, there's bubbles coming out of her helmet from all directions. I happen to have closed caption underneath, and it says, gasps! I loved it.
Yeah.
And the sound engineers, Jimmy, when the Mythosaur turned back into the shadows, there was a bass there. I've never heard that kind of bass come out of my TV speakers before. I thought it was great.
Yeah.
And so what the Mythosaur is in the greater mythological cosmos of all these creatures out there, he's a threshold guardian. For this particular part of the adventure, they're dwelling at the boundary of the zone of magnified power. This is where Bo-Katan's going in with half a battery pack and coming out full battery pack. Beyond which is unknown region of deep waters, unconscious content, darkness, the unknown, unexplored danger. Every hero has to go into that zone, grab something, and come out to be a hero. So throughout history, the hero dives into the depths of a dark sea, or the jaws of the whale, or the dragon, or the temple interior. It's all the same. It indicates the metamorphosis to a life-centering, life-renewing stage in the life of the hero. And that is at the midpoint of Bo-Katan's hero journey, her arc between episodes 1 and 3.
Now, that's just straight up Joseph Campbell right there.
That is right. Yeah, that is from the man for sure. At this point, when I went back and watched it again, I said, holy shit, this is a buddy movie. Din can't do it without her, and she can't do it without him. And they have skills and things and they don't get along necessarily, but boy, do they start working together really well. And at this point, Bo-Katan was the guide. She informs Din about the planet, the history, the mines, the waters, where everything is. And he provokes her faith, which is necessary for her to make the impossible possible.
Well, let me ask you this. You kind of teetered on the edge of it, but I'm gonna ask for clarity. Is the Mythosaur real, and does it matter?
Yes. And yes.
And why does it matter outside of it being like an incredible work of nature that inspires shock and awe? What other than that? Where does the Mythosaur get its powers? Why are the waters that it swims in magical?
I'm not sure about that, and that certainly hasn't been revealed. You know, I saw the Disney Gallery piece on season 3. I think those guys are doing a great job. I loved hearing how they were doing it, and they let the works breathe. How they took the symbol of the Mythosaur and how it just played out over the years, and what they did with it in season 3 that's 4 stars right there. They knocked it out. There is plenty of room for them to further define it later, and if they do, I'll be there with the popcorn watching. I love it.
See, now I want to binge season 3 again. It is definitely tightening up story ideas and things that I thought were shortcomings, but you're providing a window into a world where this is all done. This is all by design, and it's easy. I think oftentimes, and I fall into this, it's human nature to want to take a cynical view sometimes, especially when you're in the unknown and you want to try to make sense of it. And what I really admire about the way you approach it, and maybe, John, obviously it has a lot to do with your own research and self-education about all of this stuff, but you also have a distance to it that Jimmy and I don't. This gig of ours sort of takes that away from us. We don't have necessarily the luxury of sitting with it, the way you do. So it's really great at the end of these seasons to bring you on at that time and give us a completely different, in a lot of ways, perspective to what we, at least I'm taking it as challenging some of the opinions that I had initially.
That's great to hear. If I can serve that role for my friends, I'd love to keep playing this role. This is fun. I
think
enjoy it.
Lucasfilm should hire you, is what I think. I think you should be on those Disney galleries telling everybody why this story made such good sense.
Yeah. Now you're talking.
I don't think they need help. I'm shocked. They're just quality. I want to deep dive into the Mythosaurus mythology. So I have some more material to share with you if you have time.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay, I first started sniffing out myths about ginormous tusked creatures. The Ice Age woolly mammoths on the caves kind of thing. In the modern era, you're looking for myths about tusked animals, elephants. You go to Africa or India. So I took a look at those myths. That the largest elephant ever measured at the shoulders was 13 feet. So it's the top of the backboard of a basketball court. Wow. That's where the shoulders were. That's the head keeps on going.
Yeah.
The Mythosaur is bigger, much bigger.
Yeah.
I kept going back and forth, rewinding, going, damn. In Jaws, when the fish goes by the first few times, she's like, oh, it's a 25-footer. Oh, that's 30 feet. Right. I was in that space, but we were in the big space here now. I quickly gravitated towards the Indian myths. They're so rich and beautiful about elephants. They're sacred symbols in India. Some symbolize strength and firmness and solidity, which Mandalores stand for, intelligence and wisdom, longevity and triumph over death, which took place in that scene, the rescue scene. There are also beasts symbolizing savior and rebirth, messengers from the spiritual realms. So once I started reading on the general, I said, okay, let me keep scouring for what's going on here. If you see an elephant in a dream, it's a good omen. It signifies something good's about to happen, imminent luck, health, good things. That also happened after the rescue. So here's some specific examples of elephants in India mythology. One is a god known as Ganesh. Ganesh has an elephant head, and he's the elephant-headed son of Shiva. He is averse to worldly attachments. So you won't see Ganesh helping anybody buy a Rolex or a car, or desiring a Darksaber or a royal crown, for instance. Is very friendly, accessible deity, and known mostly as the remover of obstacles. By merely thinking of Ganesh, those who would create obstacles become afraid, and those undertaking a righteous journey will succeed. So there was some like Ganesh energy here, and I thought, okay, that's cool. There's another story about the dream of Buddha's mom. Buddha's mom had a dream the night she conceived the Buddha. A glorious elephant descended from the highest heaven, struck her right side with its trunk, and entered the womb. It's a thinly veiled metaphor, but I like that one.
Way to go, elephant. With all this talk about elephants in the history of Star Wars, an elephant actually appears on screen. In the original Star Wars, the Sand People ride banthas. George Lucas and his crew took an elephant, out to Death Valley and dressed it up as a bantha and had the Sand People ride around on that thing. That was an elephant, and they worshipped the bantha. The bantha was a member of the tribe for the Tusken Raider. So very much in line with what you're laying out there right now.
I would say bringing that elephant onto the set. Yeah, that was a good omen for George Lucas. Bringing that elephant on, that was the beginning of the beginning.
Maybe that was all the luck right there, is the fact he decided to put an elephant in space. Well, on a desert in space or whatever.
So in the oldest Indian myths, elephants used to be shapeshifters. They were clouds in the sky when they wanted to just float around. And then when they wanted to come down, they changed and became elephants and got on Earth. And there's a myth that one time a flock of flying cloud elephants landed on a huge tree branch and broke it. Some of the elephants flew away, but some fell. They were clumsy. And below, there was an ancient ascetic teaching his students. You know, in Indiana Jones in the Temple of Doom, at the beginning when Indy flies through the air on the and goes through the White Rapids and all of a sudden just lands in the Himalayas?
Yeah, on the raft, the life raft, yeah.
Right. There's the old man with the beard sitting there smiling. He was waiting for him. He knew they were going to fall out of the sky. That kind of guy.
Yes.
He's teaching thousands of years ago. He's teaching elephants land and they kill his students. And so he gets mad and he curses the elephants, and they lose their shape-shifting power, and they're condemned to walk the earth after that. That's the origin story for how we got elephants. They used to be clouds.
They fell on students.
But Indra, the king of the gods, the Zeus of the Indian mythology system, he rode one in the sky and hurled lightning bolts from one of those flying elephants. So there's two more stories, and I'm getting closer and closer. I'm sniffing out these Indian elephant-like myths. There's a myth of the water rescue. One time, the Elephant King stepped into a cooling bath and was ensnared by the Serpent King. And he struggled for a long time to break free, but couldn't get out. And suddenly remembered this prayer from a former life and sent it forth. It came from eons ago. And Vishnu, the god who just lies down and dreams all day, and his dream becomes the universe that we're all living in, he hears that prayer and immediately responds and rescues the Elephant King. And I'm thinking, wow, we're in the water, we're getting rescued. I kind of like where this is going. And then I feel like I really struck gold. And that's where, Jason, I sent you the photographs from India.
Uh-huh.
So here's the story. Here's a mythology that really closely plays out here. And it's called the enthronement of the dream goddess. So there's a goddess who has a dream and is enthroned. As I just proposed earlier, Bo-Katan dove into the waters, which was a dream consciousness, and came out and returned to, basically is on her way to returning to the throne. And so this story is, I don't know how ancient it is, but it was carved in 300 something BC. So the picture you're looking at here right now is a stupa. A stupa is a primitive brick dome. This is the oldest one in India. It's called the Sanchi, S-A-N-C-H-I, stupa. It contains inside the Buddha's relics, his ashes, and anything he had with him when he died. The people who were with him put it together right here. And what you're looking at right now is a view as the pilgrim walks up. You go in there and you pray, and it's nice and quiet. As the pilgrim walks up, there's a gate. There's threshold guardians. Not anybody can just walk in here. There's warnings. And as you get closer, I think you can go to illustration B, Jason. You get closer and closer. You see this gate. Okay, I see some elephants at the base, and they're pointing in all four directions, and they're holding up the world and the universe. And then you see all these other figurines. It kind of looks like Jimmy's basement now, where he's got all these Star Wars characters on the shelves.
Yeah.
But if you get a little closer, that's the backside. So now you're at the stupa looking out to the pilgrim's path, and you can see all those carvings. It's like a graphic novel. They're telling the stories. And then there's one, the next one is the story I want to bring to you, the enthronement of the dream goddess. Oh, no, that's actually not. This is the four elephants holding up the world and a very fertile woman.
Yes. Is that what you call it? Fertile.
Yeah, I think she's a goddess. I forget the story.
Absolutely is. I mean, for her age, she's not bad.
Do you really need the story? Do you really need the story? The picture says it all. Okay, now go to the next one. This is the story that corresponds on all fours with Bo-Katan. So right what you have here is in the middle, the dream goddess, the goddess who's dreaming, just like Bo-Katan in the waters. Her name is Padma Lakshmi. That is the same name as the celebrity on the Food Network. She's everywhere. She happens to be named after this goddess. Now here we see Padma Lakshmi is rising from the waters. She's sitting on a lotus. She's sitting on lotus petals, a flower. And she's not just seated on the lotus. As Joseph Campbell describes it, she's being enthroned. She is getting all the powers, the godly royal powers within all of us is happening in this scene. Lotus flowers are so beautiful. They sit on the surface of the water, but they have stems and roots that go all the way down into the deep waters, just like she needed to. She is flanked by two elephants. These are the earthly cousins of the old rain-bearing clouds that used to be shapeshifters. They are pouring heaven's waters on her by jars lifted by trunks. She's being baptized here. She's being redeemed here, just like Bo-Katan. It makes her, in this story, this ancient story, Padma Lakshmi is being made the mother of the tribe. She's like a biblical Eve figure. And that's what happens after the rescue scene. Bo-Katan, once she starts reassembling the tribe, she's the one that's walked all worlds. She's the one that's bringing it together. She's kind of becoming the mother of the tribe.
Fascinating.
So that's my deep mythological dig there.
Dude,
and her name is again what?
Padma,
P-A-D-M-A, Lakshmi, L-A-K-S-H-M-I. And you could read about her.
Padma Shmi.
In Joseph Campbell's The Mythic Image.
I'm pretty sure George Lucas has that one up on his bookshelf as well. Because I really think that's where he got the name Padme and Shmi.
Yeah. Well, it's so tightly corresponds to what happens in that rescue scene and what happens after that. You know how you were saying, asking me, does the Mythosaur exist? Is it real? And does it matter? I'm wondering, is that pure coincidence that these guys just came up with this, or did they know the story? And the truth is, these kind of mythologies, the ones that reverberate across the eons, across cultures, they're all kind of the same. So for whoever was putting together this season, they were tapping into something that
it's so fascinating how this stuff resurfaces. These legends and these myths can almost the same story can emerge in areas of the world that would have had no connection, no physical connection to one another. It's astonishing. And
the missionaries from Spain who showed up in South America before they were even colonies, they were just showing up there and saying what's going on. They were finding mythologies that were so closely resembled that of Christ dying for others and coming back and all that, that they thought the devil was actually showing up to mess with their work. But it turns out that
he got there
they just
first.
Developed similar stories. Yeah, right.
Yeah. Amazing. Wow, you have laid a lot on us. So, see, folks, Star Wars is still very much steeped in mythology. It didn't leave with George. And we could argue that George was perhaps better at it in a lot of ways, bringing it out, but it's still there. It's still there. We just need a guy like John Marcoux to pick away the top coat and get to the real meat.
Thank you. I love these 8-episode seasons. I love them. And they're just perfect. Yeah. They're longer than a regular movie. They've got more breathing space. Their execution is phenomenal. I think Favreau and Filoni and them, they're getting better and better. They're real comfortable with it. Grogu is getting better. I mean, I just loved it.
Well, since you brought up Grogu, and because he is so popular, where do you see him fitting in as the ward, the son, where do you see him fitting in this mythology, and especially there at the end as he sort of takes his place officially as Din Grogu?
Well, some of my favorite books ever are Lone Wolf and Cub, and they just go on and on and on. The son and the little guy and the dad are taking care of business. And I could read those all day, and I could watch these guys go all day. Grogu is a slow growth guy. I mean, how many more years or decades is it going to take for him to fully mature, and speak and act?
He will never grow up. He will never grow up, will you?
Misfits are my favorite. He's a total misfit.
He is a misfit. That is 100% fact. Grogu is a misfit. I've never thought of it that way.
Tribe. He's Yoda's tribe. He's got that kind of force thing going on. But by accident and luck and all that, he's growing up in a warrior community, and they're treating him like a warrior. He has now been apprenticed. He's been out there, shooting those darts and fighting. He's held back an infernal Holocaust shield to protect his guys. I mean, if you look at teams where everybody's come together, like the A-Team show from the 80s or Ocean's 11 or whatever, you want Grogu on your team. I don't care what team you're putting together. That guy fits on your team. And his love for Din and Din's affection and love for him, it's gorgeous. It's one of my favorite things ever in Star Wars.
I hear. I agree with you 100%. And I'd like to see that become a little bit more of a focal point in season 4, where maybe things have settled down a little bit. And you're right. He's growing up as a normal kid now out in the country and just waiting for the next adventure. So when that adventure happens, I hope there's more of that growth of the relationship and chemistry between Din Djarin and Grogu.
Season 3, Episode 8, Act 3 was clean, tying up all the knots. And when he goes and says, "Hey, listen, this is what I do by trade. I got to be a little more picky about the bad guys I'm going after because my guy's here, but I'm going to start taking work now from the New Republic." He's basically setting up Season 4 to go back to Season 1. Each one is standalone, where Grogu and Din go out, snatch a guy, bring him back, and hilarity ensues. But I'm all for another season 1. Make season 4 like season 1. I'm watching, man. I love it.
There you go. I'm with you on that. And I hope you're back. I hope you're back for another mythological breakdown after season 4.
And what should happen is their relationship gets deeper, and you see Grogu getting a little more mature, incrementally mature, and things blossoming. I'd love to see that.
Yes.
Well, and
But
don't forget, we've got Ahsoka season 1 starting August 23rd. So that might be.
Are you interested in that, John? Are you going to be watching that? I know you're not steeped in the animated stuff. So
I'm ready to watch it. I have good feelings about it. I'm ready to watch it. I will tell you what I heard about Andor. I thought if I watch that before I watch and talk about Mando, it's going to mess with me. It's too realistic. I'm going to love it so much because Rogue One was one of my favorite movies. So now that I've been on your show, I'm going to spend the next few days and weeks watching Andor, and then I'm going to watch Ahsoka.
Oh,
Great.
Okay.
You'll love
Maybe
Andor.
you might have mythological breakdowns for both of them.
You guys watch it right away. I'm very patient. I love it. It's delicious this way.
Well, if you loved Rogue One, you're gonna go nuts over Andor.
Yes,
loved it. I saw Rogue One. I did not know that the ending was gonna link up with A New Hope. I didn't. That was such a beautiful reveal, and it was so shocking to me. I think that's the whole episode. The whole movie hit me like an exclamation point.
I think we were all really surprised at how far they pushed it on that film, from how much we saw of Tarkin all the way up to the very end, as it literally just walked right into the events of A New Hope.
Why?
In the last 10 minutes, I realized I wasn't breathing because the data was being handed off to one guy.
Yeah.
Darth Vader's coming in, throwing bodies everywhere. I'm like, and then there's Princess Leia. I was like, oh my God, it's so good.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, the worst part about seeing it in the theater is you couldn't rewind it and watch that again. It was like, wait a minute, what did I just see? I need to rewind this and experience it again. But that, hey, that certainly helped.
Popcorn all over the floor, popcorn everywhere. I couldn't hold my popcorn.
Absolutely. All right, man. Well, thank you so much. I do want to just take a moment and mention that if you like what John is talking about, this type of thing, he is an author, and you can get his books. He's got various books out. dinnerguestpress.com is the website, and he's got one of those books right behind him, which is his book on Bob Marley called Emancipate Yourself. If you've heard John on the show before, we've talked about that. And John, you've got there's a Bruce Lee book as well, right?
There it is.
There's the back cover showing a pile of bodies after he just kicked everybody's ass.
That's called Poised to Pummel.
Now, John, are you aware that there is an actress that appears in Ahsoka that is Bruce Lee's goddaughter?
Yeah, Diana Lee Inosanto. She's going to play Morgan Elsbeth in Ahsoka.
Oh, that's great to hear. That's a big family tree. And there's a lot of talent in there. Athletic, musical, entrepreneurial. So good. I'm glad it's continuing.
So it gives you one more reason to watch Ahsoka.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, what a pleasure it is to talk to you, to hear all of this. You've certainly opened my mind. I can't wait to go back and look at some of these episodes after hearing you talk about them. So it's always a pleasure. Thank you for bringing it.
Me too. Love you guys. Thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you so much, John.
See you soon, bud.
All right, bud. Take care.
Bye.
John Marcoux, ladies and gentlemen.
Chewie, get us out of here!
All right. Thank you all so much for being here. Also, big thanks to John Marcoux for hanging with us and really laying down some fantastic mythological foundation for many of the things we saw in season 3 of The Mandalorian. I tell you what, I mean it when I say that I think that it's given me a whole new perspective on some of the things that sort of bothered me about this season. And John just, it was obvious that it didn't even enter his mind as that way. He just says, oh no, this, it makes sense. So I think it's really helpful to get a bunch of different perspectives. I fear sometimes we're so set in our own ways that we're almost afraid to hear other points of view. And I love that John brings a fresh set of eyes, because he's a fan. Obviously, he's a fan. He wouldn't be doing this if he wasn't a fan. But he's not as in the mud as we can be sometimes here, just because of what we do on this show.
Sometimes we crush ourselves under the weight of our own fandom.
Indeed.
And so, a fresh perspective. And John would call himself a Star Wars fan, I'm sure, but he doesn't get down in the weeds like we do.
Right.
There are Star Wars fans everywhere. But the super fan is a different kind of breed. And we think this podcast largely attracts the super fan. So it's a nice thing to get that perspective from the fan who is approaching it from a very well-schooled perspective and tries to make it all work within the history of mythology and literature and storytelling and all philosophy, all the things that, all the teats that John is sucking upon when he presents these breakdowns are really valuable, I think, and important to understand where the foundation of the story actually is.
Yeah, and what's amazing about it is he may be a yogi, but he doesn't tie himself in knots to accomplish it. It's so natural. And it just...
Yet I have seen the man tie himself in literal knots, physically. But that's in the yoga studio.
Well, anyway, big thanks to John. Also, big thanks to all of our Patreon supporters. You can check us out over at patreon.com/Rebel Force Radio. Weekly full show video is available at the All Access tier. Plus, exclusive podcasts you can't get anywhere else. You heard us talking about them earlier. Shows like the Babu Freaks, the Q&A. And it really is a fabulous community of Star Wars fans, the type of fans that you want to be hanging with. And that will become very obvious to you as we start up the after shows and you start hearing from some of those. Because if you are a Rebel Force Radio Patreon supporter, you jump to the head of the queue for the live call-in shows after each episode of AHSOKA that we'll be doing in August, September, and October. We are also on YouTube, as Mac pointed out earlier. A lot of the clips from the full video version of the show up on YouTube, as well as other exclusives, and really just a complete, total repository of history of this program, including interviews with big celebrities, Star Wars creatives, and all of our after shows that we've been doing over the whole history of Disney Plus series and then some, including Rebels and whatnot. So check us out on YouTube. Subscribe, like, and comment today. Follow us on the socials. It's always changing. Twitter's X now. We got Threads, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You know where to find us. The official website for everything and all things is rebelforceradio.com. But above all, the best way to help us out here on the show, if you want to give back, that's just to keep doing what you're doing right now. Keep listening and telling your friends about us here at Rebel Force Radio. If you got that Star Wars friend at the day job, in the office, or at church, or wherever, let them know about Rebel Force Radio if they haven't heard of us. So please do that. Keep listening. Also, podcatchers can hit that follow or that subscribe button. Love to have your subscription. Would also love to have your reviews if your podcatcher of choice allows you to do so. Please write us a review. We read all of them, and we only have one simple rule, please.
Make them good.
Don't forget about the contest. Win a Daniel Logan autographed poster. Not just a poster, but a vintage poster. It's 20-some years old. I think that qualifies as vintage. The only way you could get this, it was a premium item at the old bookstore chains. This is something you don't want to pass up. No cost to enter. You just got to go on, follow Bounty Boxes, join the Bounty Boxes group on Facebook. Make sure you're following us at Rebel Force Radio and head to the pinned post and you see that Boba Fett, Jango Fett, Episode 2 Attack of the Clones poster on the Rebel Force Radio Facebook page. Not the group, mind you, the official Facebook page. And all you have to do is what, Jim? What do you have to type as a comment under the post?
I want to open bounty boxes with Daniel Logan while listening to RFR.
You heard it here.
Yeah, and remember, only listeners in the U.S. are eligible to win.
And we will pick the winner next week. But it's not the only way you can win this poster. It's the only way you can win it from Rebel Force Radio, but there will be other opportunities to win it once you are following Daniel over on the Bounty Boxes group page.
That's right.
All right. That's going to do it for us this week. Thank you all so much for being here. We'll see you next time. For Rebel Force Radio, I'm Jason.
I'm Jimmy Mack.
And remember,
The Force will be with you, always.
Let me in. Tell him it's Boba.